The U.S. has announced its intention to build a $553 million terminal at Sri Lanka's Colombo port, which is a strategic location in the Indian Ocean. The move is seen as what they hope to be a counter to China's growing influence and investments in the region, especially in the maritime sector. The project, funded by the U.S. International Development Finance Corporation, DFC, is aimed at providing critical infrastructure for Sri Lanka and enhancing its role as a regional logistics hub. The project comes at a time when Sri Lanka is facing a severe financial and economic crisis, exacerbated by the COVID-19 pandemic and the collapse of its tourism industry. Sri Lanka has borrowed heavily from China. Colombo Port is one of the busiest and most important ports in South Asia, handling about 80% of Sri Lanka's trade and serving as a transshipment hub for India and other neighboring countries. The port is also a key node in China's Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, a massive infrastructure and connectivity project that aims to link China with Europe, Africa, and Asia. China has invested billions of dollars in Sri Lanka, including building a new port city near Colombo and acquiring a 99-year lease on the Hambantota port in the south. The U.S., which sees China as a strategic rival and a threat to its interests and allies in the Indo-Pacific region, has been wary of China's growing presence and influence in Sri Lanka and other countries along the BRI. The U.S. has accused China of engaging in what they call debt trap diplomacy, offering unsustainable loans to developing countries that could compromise their sovereignty and security. The U.S. has also expressed concerns about China's military ambitions and activities in the Indian Ocean, where it has established its first overseas naval base in Djibouti and deployed submarines and warships. The U.S. has criticized China's Belt and Road Initiative, which offers loans and investments for infrastructure projects around the world, as a form of debt trap diplomacy that undermines the sovereignty and security of recipient countries. The U.S. has also sought to increase its engagement and cooperation with countries in the Indo-Pacific region, especially India, to counter China's rising power and assertiveness. The U.S. has been trying to counter China's BRI with its own initiatives, such as the Blue Dot Network, which aims to promote high-quality infrastructure standards and transparency, and the Quad, a security partnership with India, Japan, and Australia. The U.S. has also been strengthening its ties with Sri Lanka, offering economic and military assistance, and supporting Sri Lanka's reconciliation process after decades of civil war. The proposed terminal at Colombo Port is part of the U.S.'s efforts to enhance its economic engagement and presence in Sri Lanka and the region. The terminal will aim to improve Sri Lanka's connectivity and competitiveness in the global market, as well as provide an alternative to China's port projects. However, the terminal project is not without challenges and risks. The project has faced opposition from some Sri Lankan politicians and trade unions, who fear that it will undermine Sri Lanka's sovereignty and national security, as well as affect the livelihoods of local workers. The project has also raised questions about the environmental impact of the construction and operation of the terminal, especially on the marine ecosystem and biodiversity. Moreover, the project could increase tensions between the U.S. and China, as well as between Sri Lanka and India, which has also expressed interest in investing in Colombo Port. The terminal project presents both opportunities and challenges for Sri Lanka and the region. On one hand, it could boost Sri Lanka's economy, infrastructure, and trade, as well as enhance its strategic position and leverage in dealing with both the U.S. and China, which has been strained by disputes over trade, human rights, Taiwan, Hong Kong, and the South China Sea. The project may increase competition and friction between the two powers over their interests and influence in Sri Lanka and the wider region. On the other hand, it could also expose Sri Lanka to geopolitical pressures and conflicts, as well as social and environmental costs. Therefore, Sri Lanka needs to carefully weigh the pros and cons of the project while ensuring that it serves its national interests and values. Let me know your thoughts on this down in the comments. I would appreciate it if you would take a moment to subscribe.